program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh yeah, the music has started, and it's the very, very, very first episode of the Bottom of the Barrel podcast with Randal Bruce and Nathan Styles. On this podcast, we'll be discussing sports, comedy, music, TV, current events, all your entertainment pleasures. I am Randal Bruce, the one and only, often imitated, never duplicated. I like donuts, big butts, and sluts. I think long walks on the beach are overrated because I get winded easily. My friend Nathan here, who will start talking to you in a minute. Just a little background on us. We've known each other about 20 years, give or take. We bonded over a little show called All My Children. And don't judge us, it's not like we have a disease. They had the hottest chicks in the game on daytime TV in the mid-90s. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar. I'm talking about before she was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She was the super sexy vixen named Kendall Hart. Can you hear me? You hear what I'm saying? She wanted any suckers and any respect bitches. We had Eva LaRue, the oldest of the hottest sisters in daytime, the Santos sisters, and there were two others, but I can't remember their name, but they were super hot too. I just don't know what to tell you. You were missing out. The show was loaded with hot chicks. And here's my boy Nathan Styles. What you got to say?
Sydney Penny was one of the... Wasn't she Julia?
Yes.
But, yeah.
Thanks for diming me out.
No. People would always give me a hard time for liking that show, but it was pretty awesome. If you watch that show or Dancing with the Stars, people give me crap for watching Dancing with the Stars. If you want to watch a show with really attractive women in it wearing very little, you should watch, Dancing with the Stars or some other shows like that.
For real?
We're going to talk about some comedians today because it's what we're kind of into at the moment. So we are going to talk about, I think we have, 12?
12 is kind of an odd number.
Well, yeah, but I chose 12 because Tennessee got so 2008, and we are 2008.
Nathan, I hate to break it to you, but it's 2013.
That doesn't rhyme, Randall.
Ooh, excuse me. Oh. I didn't mean to offend. Well, I guess, since it's a new list and you came up with 12 instead of 10, I'll start this bad boy off. Is that okay? It's okay with you?
Go ahead.
And my list is in no particular order, but I think I'll just start with my favorite comedian. And that's Dave Chappelle. I just think Dave's the man. I would really like to see him live, considering I've seen him once, and this was like 20 years ago. And it was earlier in his career, and, to be honest, he was awful. And that's one of the things that impresses me about him, because he's grown so much as a comedian, and as he's gotten older, he's become extremely funny. The thing I like about him is that there's no hook or character in his routine. You're getting Dave Chappelle and how he feels, and he's just on stage opening up. To think that not many comedians can do the things that he can do. Like, he was one of the first to have a sketch comedy show on Comedy Central, the Chappelle Show, which is, to me, is arguably one of the greatest sketch comedy shows ever. He was the first because Comedy Central didn't have those shows before the Chappelle Show, and now you can turn it on. They got like 10 of them things, and they're awful. But yeah. No, not even close. I think if you get a chance, you should check out his stand-up Killing Me Softly. It's just before he got the Chappelle Show, and I was literally falling off the couch every time I saw it. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, the guy that I've been really into for, well, it's been a number of years now, but I guess if I had to choose one guy that if I had to hear like 1 hour of comedy and that would be it from anyone, it would be Norm Macdonald. And when he first got on Saturday Night Live, I was kind of like, I didn't know what to think about him, to be honest. I would laugh a lot sometimes, and then he would say something, and I would be like, that's okay. But he really grew on me, and his stand-up, if you ever get a chance to watch, it's actually just called Norm Macdonald, me doing stand-up, is hilarious. And I got into him, it was a long time ago. I'll even play you the first, I hope this comes through, but I'll play you the first joke I ever heard from Norm, and it was after this. I don't, maybe just said something about my warped sense of humor, but after this I was hooked and had to start finding out more of his material.
But can you imagine that? Then afterwards you go back to the devil and you go, yes, devil, I did as you instructed. I slaughtered my family as they lay sleeping, and then I chopped them up and put them in a duffel bag. Here they are. I got them here in a duffel bag. I'll be burying them tonight in a shallow grave by the side of the railroad track, as you have commanded, O Lord host of the hoary netherworld. And then the devil pulls out a mask. It's me, Bob! And you go, oh, Bob! Jeez, you got me there, Bob, you got me. Is my face trying to run over here? Got my family in a duffel bag. There's one for you there, Bobby boy. Get us some folks, you'll be great. Thanks a lot, huh?
I saw that really randomly on TV, and I don't know if it came through, but just the fact that there was a guy at the time that had killed his entire family and said, well, the devil made me do it. And to turn that around and to say, to turn it around and just the joke being it was all a practical joke by his best friend. And he takes off the mask. He's like, whoa, what are you doing? I don't know.
No, and not to cut you off, but I totally get it, Nathan. I had Norm on my list, and I think the things that I like about Norm is that he's brutally honest. You know, he gives you the impression that he just says what's on his mind. It's just like he's an open book. And I think I like about him as well is that, you know, he refuses to jump through hoops for anybody. I'd heard a story where Jim Brewer talked about when they were doing stand-up together, and I think they were in, like, Missouri or Iowa or something like that, and they were given a list of things that they can't really say or go over, and as soon as Norm gets on stage, he literally dumps right into the first thing they're not supposed to talk about, and people are just upset and can't stand it. And everyone else, you know, the comedians there are just cracking up and they're like, this is why we love this guy. He's my hero. And the fact that, you know, I think he had pissed off so many people that they literally drove them out of the state and told them not to come back for a month.
I tell you that, to me, one of his career highlights is the stuff he did for the roast of Bob Saget. And I remember hearing afterward, people were like, oh, Norm Macdonald killed. And then other people were like, Norm Macdonald just totally bombed. And I was like, well, which is it? And I think what he did was brilliant. Because I remember, he was probably the only reason I checked out that roast, because after you've watched a couple, you've watched them all. Because everybody just goes up there and tries to be as gross as possible and as dirty as possible. And it's basically the same one or two jokes over and over. But he got up there and started making the corniest, pretty much G-rated jokes, like you would read off the back of a bubblegum wrapper or something. And people didn't know how to take it. It was like they were just looking at him in awe, like, you're doing this at a roast? But it was so smart, because nobody would have remembered him if he had just made another stupid, raunchy joke about the Olsen twins or something. But when you say, like, what's that old lady that was on there? They always have a token old lady. But he was like, oh, they say you're over the hill. You'll never be over the hill. Not in the car you drive. I mean, it's so bad, it's hilarious. And he had everybody totally cracking up, and it was like a career highlight just because he was smart enough to be completely different than everybody else, and I thought that was pretty cool.
No doubt. And I just like to throw in, those are two guys I like a lot. And they're in a movie together called Screwed. Very underrated. You should check it out.
And Dirty Work, underrated too.
Very. And I thought I had something else to say, but I lost my train of thought. So we're going to just keep on moving. I'll go into my next one, unless you want to go into your next one.
No, go ahead.
My next one is Bill Burr. Bill Burr, oh my God, I think he's insanely funny. I think he's another guy who I think he's letting you into his mind. And just this whole angle of being a functioning psycho to me is hilarious, because a lot of people don't want to admit they have the thoughts that he has. And I think one of my favorite premises is when he's talking about how women can be dicks anytime they want to because it's socially unacceptable to hit them. And he's like, do you realize how much of a dick I'd be if it's socially unacceptable to hit me? I'd be trashing everybody I know. Just, knocking people's shit off and that kind of thing, because that's how I feel. If, no one could touch me, I'd be giving a finger to everyone, and you should know that. Take it personal. I like the fact that, like, you and I had a conversation earlier, that I think he's pretty fearless, because he did Comic View on BET, and, being that he's a white comedian and doing his act to a predominantly black audience, doesn't always go over really well. And not only, he destroyed on that, and that, I don't know, that just was impressive to me. Also the fact you should get it, listeners out there, if you get a chance, look up Bill Burr, Philadelphia. That is a legendary rant. I've never seen anyone just fire off insults that way. Go ahead.
I don't mean to mess you up, but it's all just totally off the top of his head. And, I mean, I could have spent a week trying to come up with those jokes that he comes up with off the top of his head, and just destroys the crowd he's there to entertain, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's just great because they're just booing pretty much everybody on this show, and Burr just decides to give it to him and not. He just tears him a new asshole. I love it. I think it's one of the best things I've seen in a long time. If you get a chance, the one thing that I would say is check out his stand-up called Why I Do This. You will not be disappointed. One of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I guess I'll go into my next one, which would be one of the guys when I was younger, probably the second comedian. I'll get to the first one later. The second comedian I really ever got into at all was Jerry Seinfeld. And I originally, like most people, well, actually, I saw him do stand-up on a TV program and thought he was funny, and I remember telling my parents some of his jokes. And then I found out he was having this TV show called The Seinfeld Chronicles. And I checked that out, and I was like, this is hilarious. And it was a mid-season replacement, I'm pretty sure.
It was.
Yeah, and Elaine wasn't even in it.
No.
And I was like, this show's awesome.
And not to cut you off, it's just funny how completely different Kramer was on the show at the beginning.
Yeah.
He was more mellow. He seemed depressed if you watch him.
Yeah, that's true.
He wore like his bathrobe all the time.
And he had his mother was the same, but his father was a different guy. And you could tell they were still working out the kinks.
Right.
first episode's not as good as the rest, but
No.
I was still hooked, even though, you know, it got way better. But just from that, I started listening to his stand-up. My best friend from high school and I went to see him in Norfolk, Virginia. My parents took us, and it was like the second or third year that Seinfeld was on. And we thought it was whatever season, it was right after the episode where they have the Pez dispensers at the recital. So we thought we were like the two most brilliant people in the world because we both brought Pez dispensers. And we're in the crowd, and we held them up like people do lighters.
Right.
Now I guess cell phones, but you know, lighters back then. And half the crowd had Pez dispensers. We all had the same exact thought, which was pretty funny. And it's when Kramer, he always was, but especially early on, more people talked about Kramer than even Seinfeld, probably when that show started.
Yeah, no doubt.
And somebody out in the audience yelled out, "Where's Kramer?" And Seinfeld goes, "It's my damn show," you know. It's just
that's awesome.
But and people almost make fun of his act now because it's been so copied and copied poorly, and this whole observational stuff. But he was like brilliant at it and still is. And I don't think enough people even appreciate how he does it. Just because you have a lot of people that come along and do it poorly, poor imitation. I mean, you can make a joke about air clean peanuts now and you can roll your eyes, but when he did it, he was like the first one and it was friggin' hilarious. But I just think he's still great. And I think it's cool that people like Chris Rock and Louis C.K. just rave about him, and even I think Amarera of it. And they're way filthier than Seinfeld, who's notoriously PG rated, and but they still respect him. And the last thing is I respect the fact that he is so clean. Not that I'm offended, maybe obviously, by material that's, you know, R-rated, but just the fact that he made that conscious decision to stick out and try to just do it his own way, I thought was cool.
Yeah, and I'm gonna fire off my next two, and you know, one is the same as you, as Jerry Seinfeld, and I just think you know, I agree with a lot of things you said. I just think he's a legend as far as stand-up and TV. You know, he's simply amazing. I get annoyed too when people attack him and say that you know, he's too safe and he doesn't open up as much. But as you know, he's doing what's, you know, interesting to himself, and he's staying true to himself, is something that I like a lot. I think the thing about him, it annoys me that so many people are frustrated with him or have criticism of him, but that's also how I know that, you know, how great he is, because let's face it, people only start to hate people once they become great. You know, when you reach the top, then that's when everyone's like, "Oh, he's too popular. I'll be cool and not like him." But the man does his thing, and I don't think many people could do what he does. You can't touch him. He's king. My next, you kind of mentioned him, is Dom Herrera, who too I think is a legend. He's been around forever. I think the dude's so freaking funny. I think he has the best podcast out there, so you better check it out. Dom Herrera, live at the Laugh Factory. You're missing out if you're not listening to it. I just think he's pretty honest about the business. I like the fact that so many comedians love to talk to him, and they always tell stories about how Dom was the guy that, you know, would look out for him. And it's a business that is known for being cutthroat and competitive. So to be a guy who has reached that status and he's looking out for lesser comedians, I mean, we can go down a list of guys that Dom is taking under his wing. He's just everything he says to me is funny. I didn't know if you wanted to jump into another one.
Dom's podcasts are interesting. I just saw one with Bobby Lee. Did you see that one yet?
I've seen them all, my friend.
It was once the club owner left, it got really interesting, which was funny.
Yeah, he's not. He hasn't been in them since. He's only been in the early ones. Jamie Masada.
I think they figured out real quick. You need to get out of here.
Jamie dominates the podcast, and you don't get much out of anybody else.
But he's a good interviewer. It's interesting stuff. If anybody wants to check out something after this podcast, which of course is not as ours. But let's see. Next guy I would have is, I'll put a couple together too. I'll start with Ben Stiller, who's not a stand-up really, so I guess I'm kind of cheating here.
Unbelievable. You're already on the first podcast. Can't believe you, Nathan. Nathan, no Styles.
I'll mention Stiller for this reason, and it's not for, Night in the Museum, or some of the mediocre bad movies he's done.
You mean Tower Heist?
I didn't see it.
I didn't either.
But Stiller, when he was, forever ago, I guess it was like around 93, he did the Ben Stiller show, and he did bring on some quality stand-ups to his show, like Bob Odenkirk and Gene Garofalo and Andy Dick, who it's hard to believe, but was kind of cool back then, even though it's, seems a lifetime ago.
Andy Dick is fine on camera. It's the Andy Dick off camera that scares me.
But Stiller gave those stand-ups a great venue for sketch comedy, and the Ben Stiller show is one of the best sketch comedy shows I've ever seen. And it was only like 12 episodes, so they got in and out quick. They won an Emmy for comedy writing. They got canceled. He went on and became this huge thing. All the great success he's had since, I still feel like the Ben Stiller show is the best thing he's ever done. Which leads into John Lovitz, who, the reason I respect Lovitz is he really does care about stand-up. He's got his own club. And he beat up Andy Dick. Right there is enough reason for me to respect the guy.
I'm sure he heard himself doing that. So Andy's like 80 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, it's a really funny story. I've heard, I don't even remember where I heard it exactly, but him describing it is pretty funny. But, who do you have next?
I'm a 5-2 again because they kind of go hand in hand. They used to actually work together at one time, and it's Chris Rock and Louis C.K. They worked together when Chris Rock had the Chris Rock show. Louis C.K. was one of the writers on the show. I think both of those guys are hilarious. The fact that both of those guys have no problem saying the N-word, being that Louis C.K. is white, and I know a lot of white comedians, that's like, whoa, because, you could get Tracy Morgan, where people are flipping out for you saying something, like when, he told the gay joke and all of society flipped out. And so being that Louis C.K. is bold enough to talk about the N-word a lot in his act is impressive. And, again, the thing I like about Louis is that he beat the system. He recorded and sold his own special online for I think it was like $5 on his website, where everyone else was getting the corporate sponsor, blah, blah, blah. And he's parlayed all of that stuff into a pretty good career. He's got a solid show that is critically acclaimed. And another thing that I like about Louis is that every year he writes new material. Like once a tour is done, he throws all of his jokes in the garbage can and starts all over. And that's impressive in its own right. Chris Rock to me is like Dave Chappelle. He's a guy I didn't think was funny at all at the beginning, especially like when he was on Saturday Night Live. He just seemed out of his element. And then like once he left or got fired, whatever they want to call it, his career took off. I guess because it was the last chance. I don't know what got him inspired, but he's a monster right now, and I'm a big fan.
I didn't want to cut you off for you.
No, go ahead.
Let me see. Who do I have next? I'll talk about a guy that actually hosts the Late Show. Started out as a stand-up and still obviously does stand-up in his opening monologue. And no, it's not Jay Leno.
Jay Leno is legendary.
He is for all sorts of reasons. People will still swear, like, in his early years, he was the funniest guy they'd ever seen, but...
I've heard the same thing. I've heard comedians, like people like Don Herrera, say that Jay was a monster before he did the Tonight Show.
Yeah, everybody just... No stand-ups have any respect for him anymore. But a guy I do have respect for right now, who's been doing late night for a while now, is actually Craig Ferguson. And for years when I was younger, I was a Letterman fan. And then he got the 11:30 spot, and he just slowly got worse. And I can't even watch Letterman anymore. To me, he's just like an angry old man. Leno, I actually didn't mind him so much in the beginning, but I find him kind of unwatchable now. I've always liked Conan, actually, from pretty much the beginning. But really, I finally started watching Craig Ferguson a few years ago. And I think he's just the best of any of them, of just coming up with stuff, totally ad-libbing. If he's not ad-libbing most of what he's doing, he's at least making it appear that he is. And it just is some of the funniest stuff on late night. I mean, I know Jimmy Kimmel's really hot right now. To me, Ferguson is kind of alone. And I know probably a lot of people will disagree with me on that.
No, I think a lot of people would actually agree. Not to jump in, I think one of the best things about Ferguson is that he seems to put his guests so at ease that they look like they're having a blast being on the show, whereas the other ones, it just seems like it's all stiff and, where am I going to come in here? They just seem like they're sitting in his living room and they're just chatting. I don't know, that's just me.
It does appear that way, and he doesn't really appear to have cards where he asks questions. I mean, I think he might throw them away as a joke, but there's really at least the appearance of no structure of just two people talking, and it just comes off really well, and I think he's really funny. Let me see if I need to do two here. I guess I'll throw in Mike Birbiglia. Well, I probably don't know as well as I should, but I've been listening to him recently, and I've been pretty impressed. He's got a story about, I don't know if you've heard this one, Randall, but about doing a celebrity golf tournament.
I've never even heard of the guy, so it's all new to me.
Yeah, you should check him out.
I will, Nathan.
He does this bit about being in a celebrity golf tournament, and he's the celebrity, and he's paired up with two other guys who paid good money because it's for a charity, and to be able to play golf with a celebrity. And the three of them are all standing around talking, and the guys are all so, who do you think our celebrity's going to be? And Birbiglia's like, yeah, I don't. And then he's like, oh crap, it's me. And just, his story delivery of like, and then I felt like I really had to apologize that I'm the celebrity. He's just a good storyteller, like, kind of that dry delivery. and it's really solid. Who do you got, Randall?
I'm gonna go next with Dove Davidoff, who is fairly new to me. Stumbled across his part of his special on Comedy Central. He's insane. He operates at this manic ADD pace, and at times it seems like you can see his mind at work, and he's speaking on stage, but he can't get the ideas out of his head fast enough, which I think is all part of his act. But I fall down laughing when he's speaking. But then on the other side, like, if you've seen him on a podcast, this dude's like one of the best guests to have on a podcast. I mean, he can talk about pretty much anything fluently, so you can tell the guy reads a lot. Like, kind of like Joe Rogan. If you listen to Rogan speak, he's got an opinion on everything, and Rogan reads books like at a freaking insane pace. And I think those two together are probably a little bit about the same. He's been on Dom's podcast 4 times. No one's ever been on twice. So, I mean, to me that tells you a lot about what Dom thinks about him. He's just an interesting guy, and I suggest you listen to all 4 of the segments he's done on Dom's podcast. I'll jump into another one since, we're doing 2 at a time. And my next one will be Tracy Morgan. I think Tracy Morgan is just wild and crazy at all times. And from all the stories you hear about Tracy Morgan, and then you see 30 Rock, it just seems like he's being himself. And I think I would be all in for 45 minutes of him doing that on stage. I'm in for the craziness. And I don't care what Tina Fey says. He's joking. Don't take it seriously. It's a joke, people. He wouldn't kill his son.
I really had a problem with Tina Fey not defending him over that.
You are not alone, as Michael Jackson said.
I don't know. I mean, I like Tina Fey well enough.
I do as well.
But, I mean, it's comedy. He made a joke, and people flipped out. It was an obvious joke.
Well, the thing that really got me angry is that Tracy's made this joke for years. Yeah. He did a similar sketch. He didn't kill his son, but there was a sketch where he had a gay son, and they had like some experimental drug for parents who have gay kids, and Tracy's hand is shaking and everything when the son comes in with creme brulee. But I don't know. The fact that Tina Fey got upset, and she's known Tracy for all these years, and
she was probably well aware of the joke for years.
Exactly. Caving to public pressure is something I can't stand. And if you notice that, like, a lot of people on my list are people that buck the system, like Dave Chappelle, Norm Macdonald. I like that about them, that they're able to just say, I'm going to do what I want to do, have fun. It's jokes, man, jokes. What you got?
I will do one that you mentioned already, but real quickly. Louis C.K., he's like, him and Burr are probably the 2 hottest guys right now. I like them both as well. It reminded me when you were mentioning about how Louis C.K. can, as a white comedian, can get away with using the N-word. Because we're both, Randall and myself, I mean, we're talking about this because it's what we're interested in. We look at stand-up. We've kind of gotten into the appreciation for it as an art form, and just, I mean, it's difficult to do. I went to a feedback thing for, like, open micers who were trying out, just getting started, trying to do some stand-up. And there was this one white comedian up there going over material with some other comedians, and he's like, and I want to say the N-word here, and he motions to the one black comedian.
I'm sorry. This is hilarious.
And he was like, but he was serious.
He's looking for approval.
Yeah, exactly. He was I don't ask.
Right.
It's like, yeah. But it's just like how he had to really tiptoe around it. And I mean, I actually like the guy who was on stage. I'm not an insult.
No. I trust me, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was hilarious, and Louis C.K. probably would never ask.
No, he just do it, and Bill Burr's done it, and that's why I like those two guys. That they have the cojones to just do that, and I think a lot of comedians the special with Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Ricky Gervais, and Louis C.K. They talk about saying the N-word and just how and I like I said, I respect Jerry Seinfeld, just how he was like, I'll never say it. And now Louis C.K. was just like, I'll say it right now. Boom.
Yeah. And they were like, come on, Jerry, say it. like little kids keep trying to, like, no. Why have you ever said it? No, I've never said it. And you could tell he was telling the truth.
Well, it's funny because it seems like there's always something that people try to get Jerry to do, and I admire him for sticking to his guns, because I saw where Gary Shandling was like, Jerry, I just wish you would tell more dick jokes. I just want you to tell more jokes about your dick. And Jerry's like, no, never do it.
Well, I found that, and that's not to go over stuff we already talked about, but that's just the reason I respect Seinfeld so much. And obviously those guys love him that are completely filthy if he's not. And the fact, his story is, I said a joke, I think it was about Superman and Clark Kent, and his disguise is merely a pair of glasses. And it's like, he's only wearing a pair of, he says effing glasses or whatever. And he gets this huge joke. And he's like, the joke being, these are journalists he's around all the time. And you think they could figure this out. So by cursing, he gets a huge joke, a huge laugh rather. The next day, he does the same joke, doesn't use the curse word in the punchline, and nobody laughs. And he said that really bothered him to the point where he was going to just, he wanted that challenge.
Right.
And I like the fact that he's not offended by, more mature jokes, but he's not a religious guy remotely from anything I can tell.
Nah, not to my knowledge.
No, just the fact that he likes the challenge, I've always had a lot of respect for. Let's see, I was going to do two. Louis C.K. And, on the other end of the spectrum, one of the other fairly clean guys out there right now is Jim Gaffigan. I don't even know where to start. He just always cracks me up. I can't think of anything specific. I mean, there's the whole Hot Pockets routine, him going on about bacon. Everything's better with bacon, which it's so easy, but his delivery, and he's one of those guys that makes stand-up look easy.
Right.
And when you're up there, when you watch Gaffigan, you're like, oh, I could do this. And then you go up.
No.
You're like, oh, wait, this is actually really hard. Because, and somebody was talking about that the other day to me, that the best guys are the ones that make it look completely easy. There's guys that just stink, and you're like, this guy stinks.
Right.
Then there are guys who are like, you are laughing, but you do think it's simple, and it's totally not. And Gaffigan, I mean, his thing about, putting bacon bits on bacon, and, you go, like, back in time or something, I don't remember. But just so stupid. And he shows up on a lot of shows, and he's always hilarious.
Sure. I guess I'll jump in and I'll fire off two more. Another one I definitely would have to put on my list of people I'd like to see is Sarah Silverman. Another former Saturday Night Live cast member who got buried in the show and barely got any airtime. but has forged out a pretty solid career. You know, guess you can call it edgy, and she has said some things that are just out there. And you know, she probably gets away with a lot more stuff than most people do. I don't know many people that can get away with a rape joke, and she has. She's gotten away with, you know, and I'm not hating. I think it's hilarious that, you know, she can make such, you know, things like that are, you know, horrific. But she managed to make me laugh about it, and you feel bad, but it's funny, and it's comedy, you know. You can't take anything in that world too seriously.
About being raped by her Jewish doctor or something.
Yeah.
And
she was like conflicted.
Yeah.
Because it's a doctor.
And I mean, we just butchered it.
Yeah, we ruined that joke. Look it up on YouTube, please.
It's one of those topics that I could never even broach for a joke. And when she starts into it, you're like, oh no. but then you just start laughing, and you're like, well, you got it. So.
Yeah, she always seems to crack me up. I like the show a lot. The Sarah Silverman program, I thought was pretty funny. I was trying to see if I could find that joke that we destroyed, but I don't think I can find it fast enough. So I'll move on to my next person, and that's let's see, it was Maria Bamford, who's pretty interesting. She does crazy voices and characters that just seem to crack me up. She's been on a couple of episodes of Louis' program, and the last one I saw, I just thought was hilarious because they had slept together a couple of times on the show, and she called to tell him that she had crabs. And it's just the phone conversation that she gave was just so funny to me, because she was like, I'm calling to tell you I have crabs, and she's like, either you gave them to me, you asshole, or I gave them to you. Sorry about that. And she just, at the end of the conversation, she's like, so pretty much fuck you or I'm sorry.
I guess that's how that would play out. It's really funny. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, definitely you might want to take a listen. If you go into your next ones, and I'll pull up a clip for you.
Okay. You want me to start?
Yeah, but you go ahead.
I'll do, I think we're on 9 and 10.
I've lost count.
Well, real quick, and they had they're known for a TV show, but they did start out as like stand-up type of an act, which is the Fly the Concord. And if you've ever seen the show, or you just want to see something that's really funny, you can I think you can still find a lot of their stuff on YouTube as far as them just performing. And they'll tell jokes and they'll write funny songs, and usually that's the kind of stuff I'm not into, but their songs are hilarious. Their jokes in between and introducing and explaining the songs are hilarious. And it led into like one of my favorite all-time TV shows. And now that their show blew up, they barely do anything together anymore, which is annoying. And then real quick, Stephen Wright, who's been around forever, and I put him on the list. I'd really like to see him someday, because if I ever become a decent comedian or whatever, my style is nowhere anything. It's not anything at all like what Stephen Wright does. And I think that's why I'm really fascinated by him, where he just simply stands up there and just comes up with these crazy one-liners, and you just have to laugh at a lot of his delivery, but just the things he comes up with and his weird, warped mind. I know it was like 25 years ago he did something with about a slinky going down an escalator, and it was like, that's really funny. And now it's like all this time later they put that little bit into a commercial. He probably is not getting any checks for it either, but and of course it wasn't as funny the way he did it, but he's just really solid and has been for all time.
Alright, well, I'm gonna play that Maria Bamford joke. It's called Sex Hole, and then I'll do my last comedian. Alright, 1 second, folks. Here we go.
There's seen like an empty storefront, and you can't tell what it is. Like it's called like the Vineyard or Family Victory or the Rock. There's a new building that is called the Rock. You guys hand out some flyers outside. You coming on down to the Rock this weekend? We got live music, food, drinks, stuff for the kids. That sounds like church. No, it's a teen center. It's a community-based health initiatives and a pregnancy. Yeah, it's church. I wouldn't get mad, but they have tried to trick me. Want to come to a show? It's a clean show. Sure, where's it at? Cool new coffee shop. Oh yeah, what's it called? Crossroads. No! Stop lurking behind your Jimi Hendrix font. If they want to get the numbers in and do the switcheroo, just call something everybody wants to go to. You coming on down to Sex Hole? Yes. She didn't have to advertise Sex Hole. Everybody wants to go to Sex Hole. What's going on inside? Well, you gonna come on in to find out. That sounds like church.
I don't know, her stuff, it's kind of bizarre, but just the whole idea of Sex Hole, I lost it the first time I heard it.
And it was church.
Yeah.
That's what gets people in.
Just, each time when she would always like, well, what's the name of it? And she's like, and they're like, Crossroad. So yeah, you're not really fooling anybody.
I know a lot of churches these days that I wouldn't be surprised if they tried that exact same thing.
I think they definitely try that. I've seen it actually, which I guess made me laugh about it. And I only have one more left, and I'll run through that real quick. And that's Eric Griffin. I kind of stumbled across this guy. He's on the show Workaholics. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's pretty funny. I mean, the dude, everything the dude says to me is just hilarious. One of the things I like about him, and he's on the Amara's podcast if you get a chance. Maybe one day if we get big enough, we'll get Eric Griffin on. But I like his story because he just used to be a teacher, and then one day decided, F this. I'm gonna do some comedy. Just started doing open mics. Next thing you know, he's got he's on his own show. He's doing pretty well for himself.
That's pretty awesome. Just to change career paths like that.
Yeah, and I mean, he has a small part on the show, and he's easily my favorite character. Because the minute he walks on screen, I bust out laughing.
Don Herrera said how in the NFL, people are always like, yeah, you really shouldn't count on making it in the NFL because, there were like 350 people in the NFL or something like that.
Right.
And he's like, well, and then think of all the people that are like, well, obviously I couldn't do that, but I'll try to be a stand-up comedian. And he said there's less than 350 headlining comedians that make it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's put it in perspective. It's like, wow. Maybe I should try the NFL.
No, it's tough, and it's funny because they always talk about how a lot of actors try to jump into stand-up comedy because they think this will get me noticed faster. I can jump the shark. I can't really get noticed going on auditions, so I'll try stand-up comedy. And they struggle because they think they can just walk up on stage and be funny.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy.
Or we've seen people that were actors, had a level of success. The career kind of ended for that, and then like, well, I'll be a comedian now. Like, Dustin Diamond.
Oh, horrific.
It's not great. I guess my last guy I'll talk about is the guy that is the first comedian I ever really was conscious of, which is Bill Cosby. He is just an incredible storyteller, and just in my wildest dreams, I know I would never be as good as him. But that's okay, because, Chris Rock and all these other people are not as good and know it also. When I was a kid, my brother and I could recite, like, every friggin' thing we've ever heard Cosby do, and we would just recite it back to each other and just have a blast. It wasn't until about 2 years ago, I guess, that I was finally able to see him do a show. And he went on for an hour and 45 minutes, which is a really long time for a stand-up. Usually you get maybe an hour for a headliner. And he would have gone on longer, but he got the signal that, oh, you've got another show coming up at 9 o'clock, so you need to wrap it up so we can get this crowd out and the next crowd in. And it was all new stuff. Like, he ended with his famous dentist routine, but everything before that was completely new, and it was all hilarious. So Cosby will always be one of my favorites, and he's still solid. He's got to be pushing 80.
Cos is the man.
I don't know. That's who I have.
Yeah, I think that that was the end of my list. I think we have a pretty strong list, and I think that's pretty much going to be all that we cover today. We got to get into a word from our sponsor, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Let's see, what do we have here? Do you live in a gator-infested neighborhood? Are you tired of living in fear from dusk to dawn? Have your neighbors been chomped? Then I've got the solution for you. Move, motherfucker. Pack up your shit and get out. Gators are an apex predator. That means they're the top of the food chain, dummy. There's a song by Ludacris that kind of goes this way, move, bitch, get out of the way. Whew. This announcement was brought to you by Common Sense. Use it. Alright, we're back here. Randal Bruce speaking, and I'm talking to man Nathan Styles. Anything you need to say before we get out of here, man? It's been fun. Our first podcast. I'm sorry, man. I cut you off.
Well, I just want to say to probably our 2 listeners, if you've made it this far, thank you. And we promise we'll try to get better. And is that really our sponsor?
Yes, Common Sense. You have to use it.
Well, if there's anyone out there listening that would like to be our sponsor, we're definitely open to that. I guess we'll just mention real quick, we're on Twitter. Everybody else is, but we're really the place to be on Twitter at Bottom Barrel Pod. Look us up like that. And we also have personal Twitter accounts. What's yours, Randall?
It's Randal Walt Bruce.
And I believe mine's In Style 97. I haven't been on in a couple days.
Oh, dude, way to study Twitter, man.
But I'll be on it right now. And I guarantee you I'll have three followers by this time tomorrow. Also, check us up on, if you need to email us anything, suggestions, feedback.
We will read your emails, people, so email us.
What's our email?
It's stylesbruce@gmail. Suckers.
Well, and if you've been listening to us, you've truly reached the bottom of the barrel. I'm Nathan Styles.
And I'm Randal Bruce. Hit the music. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. There we go. Technical difficulties, folks. We're getting out of here.
All right.
Take it easy.